It's a full-blown diplomatic war that saw a major escalation today. India has suspended visas for Canadian nationals across the world. Those with existing visas can travel to India, but no fresh visas will be issued. The MEA today said that India's High Commission and consulates in Canada are facing threats, something that has disrupted their normal functioning.
You are aware of the security threats being faced by our High Commission and consulates in Canada. This has disrupted their normal functioning. Accordingly, our High Commission and consulates are temporarily unable to process visa applications. We will be reviewing the situation on a regular basis.
Meanwhile, another Khalistani terrorist, Sukhdeep Singh, has been killed in an inter-gang rivalry in Canada, and hopefully this time Canada will not be accusing or blaming India for killing him. That is because gangsters Lawrence Bishnoi and Goldie Brar have already claimed responsibility for this killing. So an inter-gang rivalry happens, killings happen, and you blame India. Taking to Facebook, Bishnoi posted that he has killed Sukhdeep and has warned other Khalistani gangsters, saying that their time will come soon. Now, this is coming just a day after the NIA released a list of 43 most wanted criminals, some of them based in Canada. The list, by the way, also includes Sukhdeep's name, apart from Bishnoi and Brar, who claim they killed him. India, on the offensive today, has accused Canada of sheltering at least 20 to 25 Khalistani separatists, despite India giving intelligence about their terror activities. India has said that Canada turned a deaf ear to Delhi's extradition requests. Separately, over 44 locations were raided in Punjab today, including gangster Sukhdeep's residence in Moga in Punjab.
मुझे पूछा गया था, I think somebody asked how many such cases were there. My understanding is over 20 individuals. I don't have exact number. That's for security agencies. We have sought either extradition requests or other kind of assistance related to that. So at least more than 20, maybe 25 individuals we have requested over, and not just recently. So many years we've been requesting, and the response has not been helpful at all.
On Tuesday, Trudeau triggered a crisis not seen in Indo-Canadian ties for years. He alleged agents of the Indian government were involved in the killing of the separatist leader, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, on Canadian soil in June. This obviously led to a huge diplomatic escalation, with both sides expelling diplomats. Then came the advisory. The government issued an advisory for Indian nationals and students in Canada, urging them to exercise utmost caution in view of growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes and violence in Canada. Today, India unmasked Canada. It has called Canada's allegations politically driven and prejudiced. It has also confirmed that Canada shared no specific information regarding these allegations.
Yes, we have informed the Canadian government that there should be parity in strength and rank equivalence in our diplomatic presence, in mutual diplomatic presence. Their numbers here are very much higher than ours in Canada. The details of this are being worked out, but I assume there will be a reduction. Yes, I do think there is a degree of prejudice here, They have made the allegations, they have taken action on them. To us, it seems, or it appears, that these allegations by the government of Canada are primarily politically driven. No, let me clarify. No specific information has been shared by Canada on this case, either then or before or after. We have, as we have said, or I think we've been made very clear, we are willing to look at any specific information. We have conveyed this to the Canadian side, made it clear to them that we are willing to look at any specific information that is provided to us. But so far, we have not received any such specific information. That from our side, very specific evidence about criminal activities by individuals based on Canadian soil has been shared with the Canadian authorities on a regular basis, but not been acted upon.
My guest this evening, Corey Morgan, is a columnist at the Western Standard. He's joining us from Canada. Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti is a former secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. And Prabhloch Singh is a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Corey, I'm coming to you first. Mr. Trudeau knew exactly what he's doing. Did he know that this is how things would turn out? And what essentially is he playing at, according to you?
Well, I can't see how he wouldn't have known that it was going to cause such a diplomatic crisis by accusing a nation of assassinating a citizen on a sovereign soil. So he must have known what this would cause. The motivations, again, if he didn't have evidence, that's what everybody's asking. Well, we need to see the evidence of this. Your word alone isn't enough. But people have to understand, Prime Minister Trudeau is embattled right now. He's very, very low in the polls. His government is in a minority position. The timing of his announcement was on the very first day of Parliament opening for the fall session. It seems like it was almost modeled to distract from his own personal crisis and popularity issues rather than addressing what's actually happening. And the consequences now are striking, of course, with the 1.5 citizens of Canada or people in Canada of Indian descent while he's playing political games. I mean, something very serious has certainly happened, and perhaps there has been malfeasance. But in international circles, you don't make such an accusation presenting some proof. And if he would have such proof, I would have thought he would have presented it by now.
Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, if he's, Corey saying he's embattled, yes, he is. His ratings are terribly low. A majority of the people in Canada, according to the latest poll that has been conducted there, says he's probably been one of the worst prime ministers of Canada. Be that as it may be, this is a terribly short-sighted way to deal with the problems that you're facing because, as I said, Mr. Trudeau would know exactly what would happen. And by the way, what has happened and things will happen tomorrow, day after as well, because we've heard from the MEA, Mr. Chakrabarti, telling us that India and Canada need to have the same number of diplomats in both countries. And given the fact that the number of diplomats, Indian diplomats in Canada is far lesser than those of Canada in India, some of them will have to leave. So this crisis is only going to escalate with more diplomats from Canada being expelled from India.
I think that is going to happen. Having been in government and in MEA, I've seen such crises before. And I believe that the Indian government is not going to take this lightly. Mr. Trudeau has unfortunately crossed the Rubicon, which we probably never expected. He could have quietly discussed all this with the Indian government, but he was under some strange pressure to do something because the Khalistani gang wars was going on. People, even a few days, I think yesterday, another Khalistani terrorist was killed, and his Khalistani supporters, particularly the party that supports him to remain in power, because he doesn't have a majority, has been making demands on him to do something. And so he probably thought this was the best way of deflecting all the pressure onto India, which he perhaps, in hindsight, may be wanting to rethink. But anyway, that's something that was his decision. But I can tell you that how India is going to react, and India has already reacted pretty robustly. And I believe we are going to see more action. And I can foresee the downsizing of the Canadian High Commission and missions in India. And because they have far more people in India than we have in Canada. And we have stopped the visas, temporarily, I hope. Because the threats and, they are making it impossible for us diplomats to work there. And I don't know whether Trudeau believes that this will all lead to a surge in support for his party in the next election. I doubt it very much. I think he's heading for a humiliating defeat, and this is what is bothering him. And I think this is where I think he is deflecting attention towards, other things, including this brouhaha with
But
India
that's a
and the
terribly
kind of
grave charge to
relations.
make.
Well, he has no
It's a
evidence.
terribly grave and irresponsible charge to make,
I
given the
agree.
fact that there's no proof, that he himself is saying that investigations in the probe is underway, almost trying to, paint us like the Russians.
Look,
Cory
3
Morgan,
months.
I just want to, today, I wonder if, give me a minute here, Mr. Chakrabarti. I just want to get in Cory Morgan here as well. Cory, there have been a lot of articles whose headline is Like Father, Like Son. How the negligence of Justin Trudeau's father fueled the Air India bombing by Khalistan. This is 1985. Has Mr. Trudeau and have the Canadians forgotten what happened in 1985? The Kanishka bombings, as we know it, had killed 329 people, most of them Canadians.
Yeah, it was the worst act of terrorism in Canadian history, and I would hope nobody should forget that. And Canada failed utterly in bringing the perpetrators to justice in that act of terrorism. There's been a soft spot for whatever reason when it comes to that particular area of terrorism. We take it seriously, but again, at the same time, Justin Trudeau is turning a blind eye. You got to remember, maybe it's no coincidence, but Pierre Trudeau was in a minority government position back in those days for a while as well when he made some bad decisions. Justin Trudeau right now, his government is being held up with a partnership with the leader of the New Democratic Party, which is led by Jagmeet Singh. And Jagmeet Singh is very strongly has a support base in British Columbia, a lot of donors in communities that are questionable sometimes. So, I mean, there's a lot at play here that could be, again, inspiring Prime Minister Trudeau to take such an irresponsible stance on such a serious issue as this. I mean, we've seen other countries when there's interference happening, it happens. But again, you do diplomatic channels, as was spoken earlier. You try to negotiate in private. You don't turn it into a public spectacle until you can get the facts out and find out what happened. Justin Trudeau, unfortunately, believe it or not, is less nuanced than his father Pierre was. So this is going to be even worse, I fear.
This honestly is akin to declaring open war. And look at who Justin Trudeau is protecting. Let's just, gentlemen, I beg your patience for 2 minutes. I want to take our viewers through this. Let's just take a look at Hardeep Singh Nijjar's case. It is his killing, which is at the center of the current storm. Now, reports say that Nijjar went to Canada on a fake passport in 1997. He carried the name Ravi Sharma. Canada, just by the way, rejected his asylum demand. Canada's prominent national newspaper, the National Post, reported that Nijjar then married a Canadian woman and sought citizenship again. But this time too, his plea was rejected, which means his plea for Canadian citizenship was rejected not once, but twice. Then we have a Times of India report that says that Nijjar got citizenship only 4 years later in 1991 when he joined Babbar Khalsa International, using his links with Khalistan Tiger Force leader Justin Singh Tara. The report also says that Nijjar's last footprints were traced to the infamous Brampton parade on 4th of June that had depicted a tableau on Indira Gandhi's assassination. Nijjar, as all of you now know, was shot dead on June 18th.
If there is any country, if you're talking about reputational issues and reputational damage, if there's any country that needs to look at this, I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists, and for organized crime. And I think that's a country that needs to worry about it.
Prabhloch, just come in here. We've heard from the Ministry of External Affairs today. This is India striking back and not mincing words. These are not words that you hear diplomats use. Canada is being called a safe haven for terrorists. The accusations that Mr. Trudeau has made are being called politically motivated and prejudiced as well.
Shreya, are you asking me?
Yes, Prabhloch, please go ahead.
Yes, I agree with you that these are not the normal language of diplomacy. I mean, we use these kind of language for Pakistan, which is a well-known, proven terrorist state. So you can see where this is all going. That in India today, Canada is being spoken about in the same language as Pakistan because of what they are doing, because of their long history of coddling these terrorists and these gangs who go from India, seek asylum there, and then try to create violence in India, kill politicians in India. I mean, this is well recorded. We have given them, dozens of dossiers on these people, but they have done nothing. They even tried to evade responsibility for the 1985 Kanishka bombing. Their own justice major, who produced a report, inquiry report, makes it very clear, and nobody was ever punished. What's wrong with Canada? Sometimes I wonder that Canada is not what I thought it was.
Okay.
Something has gone wrong somewhere. But under whose stewardship? Is it under Justin Trudeau? But then his father was also similar in his approach. It is perhaps in his DNA to behave like this. It's impossible. I find it mind-boggling that a fellow democracy with whom we have good relations.
It is mind-boggling.
We think we have good relations.
It is mind-boggling because India and Canada are strategic partners. And now you have trade talks that are on pause. Forget the trade talks. Now you have one partner accusing the other partner of organizing murder. Can I just take Prabhloch? I hope you can hear me because my next question is coming to you. But before I come to you, Prabhloch, I just quickly want to tell our viewers just a little bit about Justin Trudeau, who's accusing India of orchestrating these extrajudicial killings on Canadian soil. Why is he doing it? Why is he backing the Khalistani regime? And the Khalistani regime, just by the way, has prospered in Canada for the last 40 years. Well, it is because there is trouble in Mr. Trudeau's paradise. According to a recent survey in Canada, Trudeau's popularity is plummeting. And if this survey is to be believed, 3 out of 10 consider Justin Trudeau the worst prime minister in the last 55 years. Just by the way, his father ranks as the most popular. Trudeau is failing miserably in domestic politics and polls. Half of the Canadians want him gone. They want a new government. Why? Because housing prices there are soaring. If your friends who live in Canada, ask them. He also faces the prospect of an inquiry into how his government handled the Chinese government's interference in the last elections. The popularity of the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is also on the rise as he is comparatively considered to be a better leader who speaks on real issues. Basically, Mr. Trudeau is in deep political trouble, and for his government to survive the next electoral test, he needs Khalistani votes and support. If not, his ally Jagmeet Singh's NDP could make significant cuts into his immigrants' voter base. The immigrant Sikh vote bank in Canada is significant, and no party, liberal or conservative, wants to function without its support. So it seems like these wild allegations against India were the last resort for Mr. Trudeau, a step to project power and diplomatic might, which is nothing but a mere diversionary tactic. If you go by Indian political terms, it's appeasement politics or vote bank ki rajniti. Prabhloch, it may be vote bank ki rajniti, but it's also unfair for us to assume that every Sikh who lives in Canada has pro-Khalistani sentiments, because what they call referendums over and over again seem to fail miserably, right?
Yes,
so where is this fear coming from? Ki bhai, if you don't accuse India of murder, then Sikhs in Canada will not vote for you. Where is this fear coming from? Is Mr. Trudeau assuming that every Sikh who lives in Canada is pro-Khalistani?
You hit the bullseye, Shreya. So Mr. Trudeau here is failing to understand that there is a large section of Sikhs in Canada that does not support this Khalistan movement, that is fed up of everything that this section of people supporting Khalistan in Canada that they're doing. You know, whenever they attack the Indian consulate or the way they're running the gurdwaras there, in the Sikhs there in Canada, Sikhs, Hindus, and Indian population in general, they're fed up of these people. So Trudeau is being definitely misguided by his probably the people he's surrounded with, that thinking that if he goes soft on the K word or the Khalistan movement, it's going to help him politically. I do not think it's going to go really far. And also, I'd like to bifurcate talking about this point. Canada consists of it consists of Indians, which includes Sikhs, Hindus, and other people. It consists of people from other parts of the world, and it consists of people who've been Canadians originally. And by and large, they're great people. They're lovely people. And whatever Trudeau is doing now, he's doing grave injustice to Canada and Canadians as well, because spoiling relationships with India over these bizarre allegations, not backed by any proof, is not going to do any good to Canada. And it's not doing good to the people, the peace-loving people over there as well. So there's a whole lot of things going on over here which shouldn't have happened, starting with the bizarre allegations. And then if you go before that, India has been requesting for the extradition of certain people who have been designated as terrorists. And Canada has been sitting on those requests without taking any concrete action. And now all of a sudden, they come up with this wild allegation that India is behind this extrajudicial killing in Canada. Well, these political calculations definitely seem to be going very wrong for Mr. Trudeau. And, on the same lines,
Okay.
to your point, that Sikhs in Canada, there's only a fraction of them, the loud ones, that are supporting this Khalistan movement. These are the people who fled India on the pretext of them not being safe in India, though on the contrary, so many of them left India because they took loans, they borrowed money from their friends' family, and they didn't want to return it, and they thought they're going to go to another country and make use of that money. So many of them. So the integrity of these people from the word go was very low. So you don't expect much from them. Neither
Sure.
do Sikhs in Canada. Neither do Sikhs
Okay.
in Canada who are peace loving.
Yeah, and I don't even understand this Khalistani sentiment. Go to our Punjab. Where is the Khalistani sentiment? What is this Khalistani movement? There is no Khalistani sentiment in our Punjab. So why should we assume that Sikhs who live in Canada carry a flag or a candle for the Khalistani movement? They don't. But Corey Morgan, before I wrap up this discussion, I want to know how Canadians are viewing these absolutely wild allegations that their Prime Minister has made against a strategic partner. Look, he's done pretty silly things even last time he came visiting. I'm not talking about G20, but the last time he came visiting with his family, his wife was hanging out with Khalistanis. There was an invite that had gone out from the embassy to known Khalistani supporters for dinner. And of course, that invite had to be cancelled after outrage by India. So silly things have happened in the past, but this is not silly. This is downright sinister. I want to ask you how Canadians have reacted to what their Prime Minister has done and said.
But Canadians are very, very concerned. I mean, we've enjoyed a close relationship with India for a long time. We have a lot to offer each other. We have hundreds of thousands of students from India in Canadian universities. We have millions, or 1.5 million people of Indian descent who have settled in Canada, and they're fantastic citizens who we appreciate and love. We have trade agreements. I mean, so much potential with energy and agricultural products, and we're seeing a shallow Prime Minister. As you said, he embarrassed us in India already back in 2018, and now he's threatening this important relationship again, as we said, on what appears to be nothing but trying to protect his own political interests at the expense of Canadian citizens and new citizens from India, and of course people in India itself. It's insulting, and we're frustrated. Again, I mean, it's a serious issue. A man was gunned down. We don't necessarily understand the complexities of what is going on there, and we want it investigated. We want to find out what's happening. But to stand up and point your finger at another government without evidence is just irresponsible and damaging, and Canadians, I think at large, are very worried about what he is doing.
And look at where we are today, a full-blown diplomatic crisis. India has suspended visas for Canadians across the world, not just coming from Canada, but coming from anywhere in the world. The fact is that our diplomatic crisis is only going to escalate. There are diplomats who have already been expelled. There will be more diplomats expelled. Let's see how this story ends and whether it's ending anytime soon. For the moment, Corey Morgan, thank you very much for your time. Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, always a pleasure to speak to you. Prabhloch Singh, thank you very much for your time as well.